The third question is, how do I grieve while not losing my hope in Christ after experiencing stillbirth of our baby? This is a tough question. It's a heavy question because of the unique experience of losing a child. I think of God in the Old Testament when he wanted to guarantee a promise. And the way that he guaranteed a promise was he made an oath and he gave his own word based on his own character, because it's the most unbreakable, unchangeable thing that there is. So there's nothing more sure than God himself. And so when we're seeking to not lose hope in Christ amidst any kind of suffering, we want to run to look and meditate and remember and dwell on the character of God. And sometimes this can be confusing because the character of God is in dissonance with the experience that we're having. But when I experience this tragic suffering, and then I spend time thinking about God's character, what I end up having is a great comfort in the midst of that experience. So God's character doesn't take away the tragedy, but it gives me something to run to. It gives me something to cling to. And he guarantees things that are unchangeable, even in the midst of the sin and the suffering in the world that is always changing. Particularly when you've experienced a miscarriage or a stillbirth or some kind of traumatic birthing experience that you and your husband have gone through together, one important thing to note is that both of you are going to experience these things entirely different from each other. And that's actually why the unchangeability of God's character is great for both of you to come to together. A husband is going to grieve and he's going to have to figure out how to comfort his suffering wife, and a wife is going to grieve and she's going to need to learn how to comfort her suffering husband, even in the midst of their own grief. And so running to the character of God, the unwavering, unchanging character of God, won't take the heartache away, but it'll give you a place for both the grieving husband and the grieving wife to go to together. Even when we fiercely believe in his perfect character and faithfulness and love, those truths are not going to make all the pain and suffering go away, but they do make this heartache worth something in the sense that it will change you, it will grow you, it will break you, but God's character is unchanging. And so as you grieve, not losing hope isn't so much about lessening the pain or getting through the pain as much as it's looking to the one who is hope himself. And so getting to know more about Jesus, understanding the perfect character of God that never changes, that is the best way to not lose hope. And then there are times where you will feel hopeless. And so it's important to recognize that our feelings are not going to always coincide with what's true. Because I'm a fallible human being, I need to reach for something that is perfectly consistent, perfect in nature, never changing, perfectly never changing, so that when my feelings do feel hopeless, I can still look to the one that is hope himself. And in a marriage, being able to connect and recognize when your spouse is feeling hopeless. It's okay to feel hopeless, but in the midst of that hopelessness, remembering, even if I feel hopeless, there is still one who is full of hope himself. He is hope himself. And so he promises to overcome death once and for all. And this we can know without a shadow of a doubt because we can rely on his character no matter what. Another important thing to recognize could possibly be that sin and suffering is an effect of the fall. And so when we experience miscarriage and death, it should cause us to hate sin all the more. And so one way to think about our feelings as we're processing miscarriage and death is to celebrate life, because all of life is a miracle. God sustaining life is an incredible miracle. If you have gone through any kind of infertility treatment, you know that the options and the way your body works and the biology there is beautiful and incredible. And so miscarriage and death, even though we want to weep over what's worth weeping over, and it all is, we also want to rejoice over the life that we do see. And so one way to cling to hope in the midst of that is to remember that even though death is real, it's an effect of the fall. And so we hate it and we don't like it, but we also know that Jesus, the one who overcomes death, brings life. And so life is worth celebrating. And so there's this dual feeling of grief over death, but celebration over a life in Christ. And that is a great place to cling to and come to terms with when you feel hopeless.